Guys, I don't know if hell is frozen over, if I'm losing my mind, or if I'm just going a little bit soft. But I have not one, but two Telecasters. Never thought I'd see the day. But hang with me here, because I think this is going to be a good video. Before we dig into this video, I got to give a big shout out to my guys at Zzounds for sending me both of these guitars to try out and compare on stage with one another, and then to bring them here in the studio in front of the camera and give you some honest feedback and thoughts on what I think about these two instruments. So I had an idea for the channel. I usually don't really care for Telecaster single coil pickups or anything like that, just because I love the sound and the power that a humbucker brings. But I've always had a gear curiosity with the deluxe Telecaster that has these funky looking humbucker type pickups and the Les Paul control layout and pickup selector. And I've always wondered, what is this guitar like? Because it looks awesome. I think this is probably my favorite looking Fender guitar that they build. And I wanted to know, what is this thing about? What's it like? What's it sound like? What's it play like? Can I love a Telecaster that doesn't have the typical single coil pickups that a Tele usually has? So what I've got here is the Pro 2 Deluxe. And originally I wanted to compare this with another premium Telecaster type guitar, which is the Ibanez Prestige SZ, I believe. I'll put a link or a picture up on the video of what it is. But I wanted to try that compared to this to see what two $2,000 Telecaster guitars with non-conventional pickups, what do they sound like? How do they compare? And unfortunately, my guy Zzounds did not have one of those Prestige Ibanez guitars to send me, so I couldn't do that comparison, but he did have an alternate suggestion, which is the Chris Shiflett signature Telecaster. Now, if you're not familiar with Chris, he's one of the guitar players in the Foo Fighters, and this is a more traditional rock layout where it doesn't have the split coil pickups that one has. It's got normal humbuckers, and it's got a couple of other things that I like and some stuff that I don't like, and the Pro 2 has some things that I like and some things that I don't like. And I think if I could take some parts of each one and sort of mash them together, I could have a guitar that I really, really enjoy. But we're going to go through what these things sound like, how they compare, and things that I like and things that I don't like. And also, I'm going to throw the Les Paul into the mix to see what does that sound like compared to this, because it's not terribly dissimilar in sound. Okay, so the signal path for this video is the guitars will be going into the JHS Klon, into the Jubilee, into the aux box, which is like right up there, and into the interface. So it's about enough talking. Let's hear what these things sound like. The Klon is not on, so this is just the Jubilee. All right, drop tune, and I've got the Klon on boosting the Jubilee, so here's what this sounds like. All right, here's the Pro 2. This is unboosted with just the amp and standard tuning. So one thing that this guitar has that the Shiflett doesn't is push coil taps on the tone knob. So for these, you push them and they split it, and you push it again and it clicks back in. Now, I'm not really a fan of this. I found that when we were using it on stage, either I didn't push it hard enough to fully engage it or disengage it, or when I did push it, it would kind of like mess with the tone knob and like kind of pull it back a little bit, and I just wouldn't realize it until the next time I went and pushed it, and I'm like, oh, it actually had some tone that got rolled off. So I'm a much bigger fan of just the standard push-pull, but it's a novel concept. So this is what it sounds, these two pickups sound like when it's split. So I'll start with the bridge pickup split and go through the three positions where the humbucker at the neck is still unsplit, and then I'll kind of flip them around, so you'll see. There's that twang that I just hate, but it's cool that the guitar has the option to not have that. Bring the gain back some here. It was at about 2 o'clock. I've got it at about 10 o'clock now. Oh, that was the master volume. I'm an idiot. Didn't make too much of a difference. Okay, this is the, see, it didn't push in all the way. This is the neck humbucker split. This is back to full humbucking. And now the middle position with both split. Alright, so this is with the guitar dropped down to D, the gain is back up on the amp, and the Klon is on, and the guitar is not really digging this. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea of how these two guitars sound different. This one is much brighter and more articulate and like has that spank to the top end and the really upper mid-range that the Shiflett doesn't. The Shiflett has a much more rounded off and smoother top end. I'm assuming it's because it's got 250K pots in the guitar instead of 500K, which is what you typically put in a guitar with humbuckers, certainly with like, you know, the Gibsons and my Charvel and stuff like that. So I think that different pots would probably wake the Shiflett up in a way that, in my opinion, it really needs. I've got the treble and the presence and stuff, they're all just cranked to get that Shiflett guitar to have some sort of life in the top end. And I'm going to hop over to the Les Paul and let you guys hear how it compares to both of these other guitars. And what I'll do is I'll cut the video, some of the footage in so that, you know, there's not a gap of time between hearing one and the other. All right, so this is the Tokai with the Brian Kenneheck signature Sheptone pickups. No boost on the amp. right, so let's take a closer look at these two guitars and see where they are similar and how they're different from one another. So the first thing that really strikes me about the Pro 2 is this incredible silver, ever so slight silver burst paint job. Let me bring this up to the camera. So as you can see, there's a lot of flake and sparkle in that paint. And I've still got the plastic wrapping cover on both of the pick guards, so they're not messed up or anything like that. But paint's just great on this thing. The other thing I like is the fretboard wood is actually decently figured here. And another interesting thing is that this one has one string tree and the Shiflett has two, but this one seems like it's a little bit nicer, maybe a little smoother. I definitely don't hear the strings making that pinging sound when they're tightened or loosened the way that I do on the Shiflett guitar. And one other thing that I like is there's a little contour here on the heel joint. It's not much, but it actually does make quite a bit of difference between the two because the Shiflett does not have that. Now, it's nowhere near as carved out as my Schecter is, but I've always been used to just like the full fat squared off block on my Charvel. So this is a nice little welcome little, just round it off just enough that it lets you get your palm a little bit deeper in there without getting uncomfortable. One other thing that I do like about this guitar is that the bridge is a little bit nicer. So it's got these brass intonation saddles here, and they feel a lot more comfortable on the palm than the Shiflett guitar does. So it's also needed with this bridge is that you can string through the back of the bridge here, or you can go through the body, which is how it currently is strung. All right, so let's take a look at the Shiflett now. This has got a really nice metallic gold paint job on there. And the pick guard is not white, it's kind of like this cream color, but it's like a dull cream color, and I think it goes really well with the aesthetic of the this gold paint. So right off the bat, you can see this very different bridge here. This has kind of your typical Strat style saddles on there, and these little screws for the height adjustments. Man, they dig into the heel like nobody's business. Like palm muting is just literally painful on this guitar. So definitely not a fan of that. And down, let's take a look at the wood here. So on the fretboard, not bad. Doesn't have quite as nice a figuring as the Pro 2 model did. Then you have your different truss rod adjustment there and the two different style string trees there. Oh. There we go. And on the back there is the full fat neck block. Just rah. No bueno. And another nice little touch is Chris's initials there on the back of the headstock. So probably one of the coolest features on both of these guitars is this large Fender headstock. I'm a really big fan of the oversized headstock, and to compare it here, we've got the Charvel. You can see the size difference between the two. So definitely a lot bigger and, in my opinion, just a little bit cooler than the little one here. All right, so how did these things do at the show? Well, I used both of these at our show, and I used them through the Victory Kraken Mark II, the aux box, and was going DI into my FR and the house, and they did okay. I think that the Shiflett guitar, it had a little bit more meat on the sound, but I definitely did have to adjust the top end quite a bit in the aux box to compensate for the drop in just overall top end bite. I've got the pickups in this thing as high as they will go without actually hitting the strings, so it's about as good as I can get it without getting into the electronics, and because I don't own this guitar, I'm not gonna get digging into that stuff. But I think if I did own this guitar, I would probably just put a different set of pickups in there, put some 500K pots in there, and call it a day. The other thing I might actually do, just because of how uncomfortable these little the little height adjustment screws are, I would probably put a replacement set of saddles on there from GraphTech. I know that Fender sells this bridge for this guitar, but the problem is that this uses 4 mounting holes, and I think this one uses 3. So I don't think that it's a direct swap. So honestly, the easiest thing to do would just be to swap out the saddles for some nice GraphTech ones, and they don't have these big pointy screws protruding out the way that these are. And I think they look nicer, and they have the little like GraphTech thing on there for the saddle savers or whatever they're called. I would probably also swap out these string trees for something a little bit nicer, because you can definitely hear them pinging and getting caught, and it messes with the tuning just a little bit when you're adjusting the tuning, or if you do like a big bend on one of those strings, you can hear it ping down there, and like immediately the first thing you think of is, oh, it's probably lost tuning. So I would definitely swap out those. And for the $800 or so price difference between the two, you could get this, throw some better parts at it, and end up with, for me and my preferences, a better guitar. Now, the other thing that I like about this that I'd noticed immediately between swapping back and forth between the two is that the neck feels different. The fretboard feels different on this one compared to this one. Now, the one thing I did notice that I really like about this one is it has a satin neck, and it feels so good. It feels real nice and silky. I kind of get clammy hands when we're playing our shows, so I definitely felt like this one was a lot slicker and didn't slow me down during the show. This one, however, is a glossy neck. I don't know if the light can catch that or not, but the glossy neck, it kind of feels a little tacky and sticky throughout the night if my hands get really sweaty. So I would probably sand the finish off of this. My Tokai actually came with a finished neck as well, and I've just played it so much that it's a satin neck at this point, and it feels way better. So anyways, back to the point. The fretboard on this one is a compound radius from 12 to 16, I believe. And this guitar is a straight 9.5 all the way. So I could tell that this one is a little bit easier to play, especially once you get, up here. It's a little bit easier to play as the fretboard flattens out just a little bit compared to this one. It's a little bit rounder. It wasn't a huge struggle by any means, but I definitely could just tell that this one was just a little bit easier to play up there. So that was the neck difference was something I also noticed, but I preferred the Shiflett profile, the compound radius profile, to the standard 9.5 inch radius on this one. The bite that this guitar has definitely helped it cut a little bit harder in the mix, but again, I had to crank the low end and EQ the low end with the aux box to compensate for basically hardly any bottom end out of these pickups. It twangs like a Tele does, and it's got good output in terms of just like the loudness of the pickups, but it doesn't really punch you in the low end the way that this one or any of my other guitars do. Like this one's got a fullness to the lows and the lower mids that this one doesn't have, but it makes up for it with a really, really powerful brilliance in the top end, which, Teles are kind of known for that. And for what we were playing on stage, it wasn't too bad, but once I bumped up the low end and the EQing, it helped fill it in a little bit more, and it made it a bit easier to cope with. As far as things that I didn't like about these guitars, other than the sound discrepancies between the two, again, I did not like the push pots on the Pro 2. I tried it on one song and just went back and just never touched it again because I didn't like it. There's also, I believe, a high fret somewhere around here where both of these guitars came with really, really high action. And as I lowered it down on this one, I noticed that a couple of the bends on these bottom three strings, the note would just go dead immediately somewhere around here. So there's a high fret here somewhere. I didn't get a straight edge to figure out which one, but I raised up these bottom three strings just enough to where I could do a big full bend and the note didn't die. So kind of disappointing to see something like that. I mean, this instrument in general is very buzzy. Like the frets are a little bit more buzzy than my other guitars when I lowered the action down. And the action on this is still higher than like my Charvel or the Schecter, but I got them as low as I could go without either a note dying if I bent a string, or just to where they didn't buzz offensively. So kind of disappointing to have a $2,000 American built Telecaster with what seems like not the greatest leveling job on the frets, if I have to be honest. Some of the other guitars that I've played recently, I was able to go quite a bit lower with the action and didn't get hardly any buzz. So that was the Pro 2. And for the Shiflett guitar, again, the action came very high. And I didn't get the action quite as low as I wanted, but the string buzz really was not nearly as bad as it was on that one. There weren't any high frets that I could find in terms of just bending every string at every fret to see if everything still rang out, and I didn't have any problems with that. So good job, Mexico. You guys did a pretty good job on the frets here. The edges of the frets on both guitars, they're fine, so no problems there. The tuners on both guitars, I mean, I like locking tuners, that's no secret at this point. $1,900 guitar over here probably could have gotten a set of locking tuners if I'm honest. The Schecter, the Aaron Marshall Schecter that I just had, much cheaper guitar, it had them. And yeah, it just makes life easier with string changes to have these locking tuners. At $1,000, $1,100 at this price point, I wouldn't really expect this one to have it. I would expect to come out of pocket for something like that. But spending an extra $700, $800, give me the locking tuners. Come on. All right, so what are my thoughts on these two things? Well, I think that each of them have things that are decently good going for them and some things that are not so good going for them. If I had to pick just one, it would be really tough because I like the neck profile of this more, but I don't like the glossy finish on the back. I like the satin finish on the back of this, but I don't like the smaller radius on the fretboard. I like the little carved out, shaved down joint there, but I don't like the hard edge full block on the back of the Shiflett guitar. I love the paint on this one. I still like the paint on this one, but this silver paint on this guitar is really awesome. I like the bridge on this one. I don't like the bridge on this one. I like the controls on this one. I hate the controls on this one. It's just there's too much that I like and don't like to really make like a Frankenstein of the two of these. I think that there are other companies that make other super teles that I probably would like more, and I'm going to be playing on the channel as soon as I can get my hands on some. But I wanted to see what this one was like. This has always been the one that I've wondered, what is this guitar like? What does it sound like? How does it feel? How does it play? And I'm glad that I got to experience that, not just here in the studio, but as you know, on the stage to see what does it sound like with my music that our band plays in that live situation. And it wasn't terrible. it wasn't terrible. I know it seems like I'm kind of getting down on these guitars just a little bit, but it was not a bad experience by any means. I had fun. The crowd had fun. I wasn't having to think too much about the instrument other than, making sure that the controls were where they needed to be, and that the EQing of the aux box was where it needed to be based on which guitar I had. So yeah, I'm curious, what did you guys think about these? If you want to see some more Super Teles, let me know. Definitely got my eyes on a couple of them that I think take the best of both of these and kind of mash them into one instrument. And I think those might be a little bit better suited for what I want to do with the instrument on stage, and suit my taste better. So we'll definitely be taking a look at those. If you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit subscribe so that when I do get some of these new guitars, you'll be notified and can come back over here and take a look at them with me. Again, big shout out to the guys at Zzounds for sending me these two guitars to try out, and I will have an affiliate link for each of these, as well as some other gear that I've been using to get the sounds that you've been hearing in the video. So if you want to try these out, it would be greatly appreciated if you hit up that affiliate link for either of these guitars or literally anything else that you need to buy from the website. I get a small kickback, and it definitely helps out the channel. So yeah, we will catch you guys in the next video, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Take care. Bye.